Hey, Choice Words listeners, Sam B here. Guess what? We are back with a brand new season of Choice Words from Lemonada Media. Each week, I'll chat with amazing guests like Kerry Washington, Laura Dern, and Nick Offerman to dive into the biggest choices they've ever made. We are talking career-shaping, history-changing, life-defining decisions. As someone who has made my own fair share of questionable choices, hello, bangs, I am pumped to share these funny, poignant, all too relatable stories with you. Season 2 of Choice Words is out now. Tune in wherever you get your podcasts. You won't want to miss it.
Hey everyone, are you ready to add a sprinkle of joy to your day? Then you need to check out Add to Cart. Hi, I'm Sujin Pak.
And I'm Kulap Vilaisak. We're your hosts, and on this show, we talk about the things we buy, the things we buy into, and what it says about who we are.
That's right. Each week, we're going to have some honest and maybe, a little TMI conversations about all the fabulous, weird, wonderful things we're adding to or ditching from our carts. We talk about beauty products, latest health trends, philosophies we're passionate about. Nothing is off limits on this podcast.
We're diving deep into everything we and our guests buy into and exploring what it reveals about who we truly are. We're going to decide what's worth the investment, be it money or emotions.
Add to Cart from Lemonada Media has new episodes out on Tuesdays, wherever you get your podcasts.
Oh, hey! No Cure for Being Human and Other Truths I Need to Hear is coming out in the paperback edition. So if you want, you can pick up a copy wherever books are sold. Hello, my dears. My name is Kate Bowler, and this is Everything Happens. Thanks so much for listening in every week as we tackle topics that people don't necessarily, say, discuss at dinner parties. And today's episode is no different. We're talking about death, but I promise this conversation is one that you're going to feel better after listening to. I wanted to talk to somebody who really understands the necessity of honesty around our losses. So I asked someone who, for the last 50 years, has served as a funeral director in a small Michigan town to talk about the kind of wisdom you can only have by standing so close to the edge, with the living, with the dead, helping people be shepherded through the process of loving and letting go. And he is funny and wise and has the economy of a poet, which makes sense because he's one of those two. You are going to love this one. This is one of my favorites. Here we go.
Thomas Lynch is the author of 5 collections of poems and 4 books of essays, including one of my new favorites. I am completely in love with it. It's called The Undertaking: Life Studies from a Dismal Trade. His work has been the subject of 2 award-winning documentaries, PBS Frontline's The Undertaking, which won an Emmy, and a film produced for the BBC called Learning Gravity. Thomas Lynch's essays, poems, and stories have appeared in publications like The Atlantic, The New York Times, and The New Yorker. He lives in Milford, Michigan, where he has been the funeral director since 1974. Mr. Lynch, I'm sort of already obsessed with you, so you're going to have to tolerate that for the next bit. Thank you so much for doing this with me today.
Well, thanks for your interest, Kate. You'll get over the obsession, I promise.
So what kind of response do you normally get from people when they find out that you're a funeral director?
Well, for years it was always, well, somebody's got to do that, I suppose,
Oh.
But when you're a funeral director in a small place, people are, on the one hand, very glad that you answer the phone at night because they only call with trouble, and it's emergent trouble. It's something has to be done right away, and then they're glad to see you gone. So they say things like, "I hope I don't have to see you again for a long time," but because everybody understands, the math of the attachment is usually when some bad thing has happened. So they don't call me because of, the graduation parties and that type of thing, although I get plenty of those. And I think, too, there's the notion that I must know something that they want to know, and I don't. I mean, I'm as frightened, witless as the next guy is, and um, but I do show up in the middle of the night, or somebody in my employ will show up in the middle of the night if you call. We've been answering the phone for a long time, so.
It's so funny that proximity to death does lead people to like wonder about secret knowledge. I remember even just being, well, I was busy trying not to die for a bit, and every now and then someone would say things like, "What's heaven? Sorry, what's heaven like?" And I was like, "Oh, no, I'm still alive. I'm
Yeah, yeah.
I'm just close to the edge of things."
Yeah, even a toe in the door of mortality, which we all have, by the way. I think it frightens people. Or they think it's contagious, which of course it is, because, I mean, it really has caught on. The numbers are convincing. Roughly 100% of the people who are born die. And and you can try this at home. I mean, it's always going to add up to about 100%. So,
Yeah. And what does that mean, the act of undertaking?
well, that's a great question, because I used to think, when I was a child, I used to think it meant you took them under, you put
Uh-huh.
them under the ground. I thought, it had to do with excavation mostly. But an undertaking, it turns out, is a sort of a pledge to get a job done.
Mm.
And in that sense, the undertaking in the case of a funeral director is the agreement between you and the community you serve that you'll show up and do your work when the need arises, not when it's convenient for you. One of the character flaws I have, among many, is that I never understand, having to make an appointment with a doctor that's 3 weeks in the future, because I can never say, yes, we'll take care of that on Saturday when I'm feeling better about waking up at 3 a.m.
Mhm.
When someone calls, we have to respond now. And the clock is running from the time the call for assistance, the call for help comes, and when we show up. And there's a real sense that our commitment. When I moved to Milford in 1974, I knew that I was not going to get a promotion. I was going to be the undertaker in Milford until the day I stopped being that. Now, I live up north on a lake now, and my son catches the phone at night and does all the daily work. And I'm, as he says, not retired, but not required. So, like today, I'm writing obituaries for a couple of my friends who died this past week, and their funerals are in later this week. So I'll drive downstate and attend those funerals and be part of the direction of those funerals. But mostly I just stay up north and type and read and, take care of Carl, this is the dog. So.
I'm sorry about your friends.
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you. I mean, one was 98, the other, I think, 97. So they had a good long haul, both of them. But it also means that my attachment was habitual. And I had come to the conclusion, and this is coincident with the Queen dying at 96. We had come to the conclusion, or we had nursed the impression that they would be there forever, because they'd been there forever, So.
You said something so beautiful about the feeling of grief, loving someone at the end of their life, and the grief of someone at the beginning. I'm trying to remember your exact phrase, but it was something that like friends in old age give us memories, but children give us dreams.
Well, in the sense that, yeah, children are our expectations. The old are, among other things, are vexations. When you live a long time, you live long enough to be truly human, which is to say, imperfect in ways that are unique. So
Yes.
some people will kind of roll their eyes, others will smile and grin, but they're character flaws. They're the indignities of age that play themselves out. We talk too loud. We whinge too much about things that we should be grateful for. So
I'd forgotten that word, whinging. That's such a
yeah,
great that's such a great word
I love
about
that word. Yeah,
the spiraling of a great complaint.
yeah.
That's good.
This episode is brought to you in part by Ritual. Kick off your morning with Ritual's Stress Relief, the supplement designed to align with your body's natural cortisol rhythms. With this new innovative supplement, Ritual is empowering you to navigate your daily juggle with ease, whatever life brings you. I'm a huge fan of Ritual, especially their Synbiotic Plus, which you've definitely heard me mention before. Synbiotic Plus is a triple action supplement that combines clinically studied prebiotics, probiotics, and postbiotics. And now I love taking their stress relief too. It feels like a great way to start off my daily routine with something that supports my cortisol levels. Also, hilariously, I figured out today that it tastes like Trix, which honestly is delicious. I know it's just swallowing a pill, but it really tastes good. This cutting-edge approach boosts the efficacy of 3 clinically proven ingredients, helping your body manage stress more effectively. Stress relief is made traceable with ingredients you can trust, including L-theanine from South Korea, saffron from Madrid, and ashwagandha from India. The juggle is real. Don't just respond to stress. Get ahead of it with stress relief from Ritual. Get 25% off your first month at ritual.com/everythinghappens. Start Ritual or add stress relief to your subscription today. That's ritual.com/everythinghappens for 25% off. This episode of Everything Happens is brought to you in part by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. From hotel suites to romantic villas, with so many choices across the U.S., you can book whoever you want to be. Book a spacious vacation rental to activate family time you, or book a beachside resort to unlock relaxed you. There are so many possibilities with Booking.com's wide breadth of U.S. accommodations. I love to plan a fun trip, and I've got one to South Carolina coming up, so it was fun to take a look at Booking.com's offerings. Maybe a getaway to a new city, or hole up in a cabin in the woods with some board games. Booking.com also has some amazing deals on beachfront vacations as well. There are so many kinds of travelers in all of us, just waiting to be booked, and with so many possibilities on Booking.com, you can choose who you want to be every time you travel. This spring, check out Booking.com for your ideal hotel or vacation home, no matter where you go in the U.S. Book whoever you want to be on Booking.com. Booking.yeah.
This is something I've thought a lot about, non-abstractly, I suppose, but what makes a funeral a good one in your mind?
Well, I've thought about this all my life, Kate. I'm glad you're asking, because for me, a good funeral is when, by getting the dead where they need to go, the living get where they need to be.
Hmm.
So the one thing I've had to identify as sort of part of the human condition, not part of the Irish Catholic or Orthodox Jew or Polish American, but the human condition is that ours is a species that deals with death, the big idea of it, by dealing with our dead, the thing itself. So for me, a good funeral has to include the essential elements. You have to have a corpse. Someone has to agree to quit breathing forever. You don't have to ask for volunteers. Every day in America, about 6,500 or 6,800 of our fellow Americans will cease to be, whether we want them to or not. So, but we need a corpse, and we need people to whom the corpse matters, mourners. That's very important. And we need a story, and the story can't be, oh, Grandma really liked chocolate chip cookies, or Pop always cheated at golf. That's not sufficiently nimble a story to handle the mystery of mortality.
It doesn't anchor our souls.
It doesn't. Yeah, that's a good way to say it. It doesn't explain what it is we're doing here. and what the difference between being and ceasing to be, where that traffic conducts itself. So the story might be religious or esoteric or spiritual or superstitious. It doesn't matter. We need a story to say, this is what made this is how this person came to be the ones they are. And this is where we think they've gone. And if you can get that story told in a funeral, you've done people a lot of good. You've basically, what do they say? That journalism is the first draft of history? In the same way, obituary is the first draft of biography. If we take, as best we can, a measure of someone and say, in addition to how they came to be the ones they are, but how we reckon they got to where they're going now, that's a good story. And then the last thing, and this is particularly apparent in the Queen's funeral, is transport. We have to get them the hither and yon of it. We have to get them from there to here or here to there. And wherever we leave them, we leave them. We go back to life itself. We leave them in some place where the dead are. And these will kind of rhyme. Corpse, mourners, story, transport. Those four things. Whatever else, those are the essentials. You don't have to have a casket or a coffin. You don't have to have mum plants or roses. You don't have to have a clergyman or an undertaker. But you do need either a hole in the ground or a fire or a hole in the wall or a sea to cast the corpse into. You need some abyss to consign the dead to. So all those things, the accessories are the things we get stuck on. It's much the same with the weddings, where we worry more about the photography and the and what the menu is than we worry about the promises that these two humans are making about their most intimate lives. That should take our breath away. She's promising him what? And he's promising what? We never get on to that. We always are worried about the fashions, not the fundamentals. I say for funerals, the essentials are those four things. The rest is all accessory. You can do with it or without it. The charges will attend each one of them, But we are the only generation. When I say we, I mean the last 50, 75, maybe 100 years is the first time in human history where a generation has steadfastly tried to do funerals without the dead guy there. Have you noticed this? We go to these ubiquitous celebrations of life.
The celebration.
The celebration where everybody's welcome but the one who has died. They've been disappeared by someone like me, who has your credit card numbers and your expiration date. No pun intended. And and I can disappear a body pretty quickly, and have done. And I regret, because I think the real essential element of a funeral is getting the dead where they need to go. And
you're talking to the right person, because I study positive thinking and our culture's obsession with optimism. So I feel like you and I were born to have this conversation about why only hitting the kind of high notes of celebration might not sort of play the whole song of this person's life.
Well, a celebration of life is a marketing tool. It's much easier to sell a celebration of life than a funeral. I mean, because everybody would rather celebrate. Usually there's a drink implicated, and you get to smile more and tell jokey little anecdotes instead of remark on how broken your heart feels lately. But it does say, come with your best smiles, leave your acute grief at the door. And what I find is, having done this for 50 years, that people don't need a good laugh when someone dies as much as they need a venue in which they can have a good cry. A good laugh feels good. A good cry we don't trust as much. It is just as good, but we're not as willing to let ourselves go with it.
Yeah. It's embarrassing. It's vulnerable. What if
Yeah.
people see me?
Yeah.
What if it doesn't stop?
It feels like, you're breaking down, falling apart, it feels like a structural anomaly.
Mm-hmm.
We want people to bear up. We want them to hold it together,
Is there a generational piece there too? I'm just your descriptions of the kind of greatest generations, stiff upper lip, kind of like let's just get through, which is a powerful testimony to the survival of mass trauma. And then I imagine that approach had some drawbacks.
That might be above my pay grade, but I don't know of any. I mean, we get one mom and one dad. I remember one New Year's Day meeting with a family, 4 daughters, of a woman who lived to be 104 years old, died in the early hours of New Year's Day after partying with her grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And, she didn't wake up on New Year's morning. And I was meeting with her surviving daughters, all in their 70s. I remember saying, stupid as I was and am, you all must be very grateful that your mother had this long and impressive and meaningful life. She watched the generations rise up around her. She lived in rude good health right up until the end, partied her way up until her last breath, and lived to be you must feel really grateful to God and everything. And one of them said, Mr. Lynch, we don't feel that good today. Our mother's dead.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, why didn't I think of that? So the man whose funeral I'm going down, a couple of them, but one of them's 98 years old. I last time I saw him was a couple of weeks ago at his niece's funeral. And, I thought he'll make the 100,
Yeah.
He didn't by, a little while. The guy flew 26 missions over Italy in World War II as the tail gunner in a B-24.
Wow.
So he had ample chances to be shot down and killed outright. He drove 30 miles across Detroit to go to work every day. And 30 miles back. He was married for 63 years to the same woman, which is risking your life the way I count it, but he did. He made marriage look really good. And he outlived her by 10 years, which might have been the toughest years he had.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to his son last night, and his son is just as heartbroken as if his dad was dead in his 50s.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because this is the man who he's called every night for the last, 30 years to see how he's doing. How's his golf game? How are his new knees? How's that ringing in your ears, Dad? So he's been a fixture in his life, and now he's not. And like every habit, it's not broken that quickly. So he still gets out of the car in his dad's garage, thinking, I'll ask Dad about this or that.
Yeah.
And then catches himself to say, I guess I can't ask Dad anymore.
Hearing that, such a beautiful permission to, I get this comment a lot where people feel like they can't acknowledge the gravity of their loss because always simultaneously somewhere it pales into comparison to the enormity of someone else's grief or the world's grief. Like whose parental loss can compare against genocide or pandemics or terrorism or But you wrote something that stopped me in my tracks. You wrote, it was about, it was arguing against the idea that death is sort of impersonal and commonplace because it happens all the time. And you wrote, like politics, all funerals are local.
It's true.
I thought that was so lovely.
We only get one. Yeah. Yeah, I've had the good luck of being at a lot of them, and every time I think there's a routine here, I find that's not the case. People surprise you with their capacity for standing up. I've always said that, I don't know what I believe in. Some days I'm certain there's a loving God in charge. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, not so much. Sunday, I take the day off and go to an AA meeting. But I'm as apostate as the next guy is. But when I see the parents of a child who's died standing upright and speaking in sentences, then I think somebody's in charge here. Because I couldn't take that. I couldn't ever possibly endure the death of one of my children. And I remember a man in the Lutheran church in Milford years ago after his daughter died of some multisyllabic disease. And he was trying to eulogize her, and he said, "The thing you fear the most will hunt you down." Which, if you scan, is like a line of Shakespeare. It's 10 syllables. It's iambic. Da-dum, 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 da-dum. And I immediately consigned it to a notebook and have waited to put it to some kind of use in a poem. I've not yet had that happen, but the thing you fear the most will hunt you down, I think turns out to be, a proper axiom. I know in my life, as the pandemic began to rear its ugly head, my daughter, in her mid-40s, long suffering from mental illness of a kind, mental illness full stop, leapt to her death off a bridge in California. And all I could think of was this man in the Lutheran church saying, "The thing you fear the most will hunt you down," because here I thought I couldn't possibly stand upright and speak in sentences after such a thing.
Oh.
But I am, and I have no one to credit with that or with the sense that I got to, that I was more grateful for the 45 years that she was among us, even as challenging as some of those times were. I'm more grateful for those than begrudging of however many years I will not have her in my life. I don't think there'll be 45 of them, unless I break some sort of land speed record for my race of people. But and I can say really and truly that that's the case. So
I guess I spent so long being someone just because of being sick that people were a little bit nervous about being around. That when I read your work, I feel so at home. Like you really expect the durability of all these acts and truth claims to stand up. It sounds like when you say, I'm not really, every second day, I'm not really sure what big claims I should make, about life after death or hope in the eternal or the coherence of a cosmic narrative. But you seem so simultaneously convinced that it helps us bear up the weight of our lives in a way that feels beyond us.
And Kate, what a nice thing you say, that it feels like home. We should get together. We'll have dinner.
I would love that.
I would too. And but I can tell you that I haven't a clue what comes next. But I do think that we are given glimpses. I think it was Bill Wilson, Bill W., who said the spiritual life is not a theory. We have to live it. I think what he meant was the spiritual life is not a theory. We're living it. And I have found, and this has been, I have to report, all my life I've had a sense that the cloud of witnesses, as I think the Methodists call it, it's a lovely term for this sort of space between the gone forever and the lately gone. But it's as if there's a mezzanine to heaven, some sort of middle ground. I always think of it as like the balcony in To Kill a Mockingbird, where Scout and Jim are with the black citizens of that little town where injustice keeps happening. And Gregory Peck is walking out, and the kindly minister says, "Stand up, children, your father is passing." Well, I think somehow that we are all sort of happily haunted by the people that loved us and we loved, or we argued with a lot and contended with, but took seriously. And I think their lives and times and loves and foibles still haunt us in a way. I think, in a sense, we bury our dead and then we become them. We become the characters in the town bereft of its characters. You know?
Yeah.
Buck Wilson dies, and suddenly I begin to talk like Buck Wilson. You know?
You're like, somebody
With
needs to complain about this.
Exactly. We become the things we miss and the ones we love. So I see my mother in my sisters all the time, and in my sisters' daughters,
Yeah,
I see their grandmother,
that's lovely.
and I can't help but see my father in my brothers and my sons, and I assume the same holds true. I think, my waking and my sleeping are both informed by the big spirits of my life, which include my dead daughter, who knows my heart now, which is something that I don't think she ever did when we had each other near to hand.
What a beautiful thought to be fully known.
It's a comfort, isn't it? Because I think that's what we want with our intimates, with the people we love the most. We want to be known by them.
Yes.
We want them to know our intentions and our motivations and our heart.
And our enormously powered loves.
Which we can never quite communicate.
Yes, absolutely. It's so inefficient. I always think of it like
fumbling.
Yeah. I always think of it like a light that just is constantly producing too much heat when it was supposed to just make light. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the part that we can never get across, how unspeakably in love we are, and how impossible it is to let you know. So the thing about the dead is they know our hearts. And the knowledge that they know our hearts is a spiritual conversation, a colloquy between, the best and all the godly in each of us, So I do feel like I'm one of 9 sons and daughters of my parents. And I used to think, what does a guy got to do to get a little attention in this house? I'm sure the same is true for people with one brother or one sister. Or only children must feel the same way. There's probably a cat who needs more attention. But I think now I don't have to fight for attention. They know my heart. And so I have to behave as if I'm known by people I admire. So
yeah. Oh my gosh, right. Bearing both the love and then the stories of others requires us to have I guess you would say, a legacy, worth having. Yeah. maybe not everybody can relate to being a funeral director, but I think so many people can relate to the experience of having a profession where you know all the cracks in the foundation of the universe, and then that awareness makes you sort of have to make decisions about the rest of life, like what you're describing, where you get the phone call in the middle of the night and you know that Thursday is different from Friday. Can be a universe can end for somebody. And then the rest of the time it's, cereal and groceries and errands. But flipping between apocalyptic experiences of time and then just ordinary, mundane time can be really surreal for professions where it causes constant shifts in how we adjudicate risk and change. So I wondered if we could talk a little bit about how this awareness creates different relationships with fear. And your parents seem to have had two very different responses to having death be like a part of the family business. I wondered if you wouldn't mind sharing a bit about how they thought about fear.
I think my mother's faith was so scholarly. She knew her faith. I mean, when my mother said we were all God's children, she was also saying that there were things that she was not in charge of. So that, if her children outlived her, which they did, it was not because of her scrutiny or her parenting, although she was a very careful parent. But I don't think she feared, because her faith, whatever fear rose in her, her faith took care of. She would just turn that over to whomever's in charge here. Now, she happened to know what was on the menu in heaven. Her faith was very, very informed,
Yeah.
My father, I think, because of his work, was more wary. He saw the shit that happens, often for no apparent reason. The absolutely chance horrors of existence. And I think he tried to communicate some of those things to his sons and daughters. He knew when to use the gas and when to use the brakes. He had a great. Of course, he was 19, and in the fighting in the South Pacific in World War II, he saw things that no doubt traumatized him.
Yeah.
But his life as a funeral director, I think, made him, in my mind, the most sane person I ever knew. He was 25 years sober through the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous when he died. But for that, and I'd never seen him drunk except once after his father died. But no, he was as sane a man as I ever knew, and as grateful a man as I ever knew.
What do you think it is about being close to death that makes someone grateful?
Well, apart from the obvious, I always say to someone, I've got more money than time, and I don't have a lot of both. So, somebody wanted me to join the discount club at the drugstore. I was just trying to get checked out. I said, I'm not joining anything. I'm too old for that. I can't take the time. I'll pay whatever the price is. Give me the full price. I'll pay it. The guy behind me said, you can use my card. I said, I don't want to use it. I just want to get out of here.
That's so funny.
And time is so precious,
Yes. That was one of my first coherent thoughts. I remember I was, I'd always been very respectful of my academic elders, like a lot of long, lingering lunches where 2 hours later you still only ask the question, tell me more about your research right now. And then I remember after I got sick, one time in the middle of lunch, I just stood up and I was like, oh, I don't think I have time for this. And I just left. Apparently, it turns out that I left in the middle of a faculty meeting because I ran into the custodian this last week, and she said, were you the lady that was dying for such a long time?" And I was like, "Yes, that is me." And she's like, "I'm so glad you're okay. You the fact that I just remember you yelling, 'I don't have time for this bullshit.'"
It's
When
important to know
and I
that.
was like,
Yeah.
I guess that was a good moment. A moment of a moment of clarity.
Yeah, it does sort of it's like good punctuation, isn't it, Kate?
Yeah,
You know how the sentence ends, and it makes the meaning of the words all that much more important.
that's exactly right.
Yeah.
And there will be fewer ellipses. There will be fewer.
And no parentheses. Yeah. Hmm.
This episode of Everything Happens is brought to you in part by Huggies. Parents know diaper rash can be bad, like ruin you and your kids' week bad, especially if your kids have sensitive skin. In my household, we did absolutely everything we could do to avoid diaper rash. Our kids need a balance of breathability and durability in their diapers and training pants, and Huggies was my favorite for that very reason. Baby butts rejoice. New Huggies Skin Essentials are here. A brand new dermatologist-approved line of diapers, wipes, and pull-ups training pants, all designed with baby's sensitive skin in mind. The Skin Essentials diapers feature the Skin Protect liner and help protect against the top 2 causes of rash by managing moisture and runny mess. The wipes are thick and have 0 harsh ingredients for a great, gentle clean. Pull Up Skin Essentials has got your big kid covered too, with a training pant that is ultra soft and breathable to help protect sensitive skin throughout potty training. Learn more at Huggies.com. Once again, head to Huggies.com to learn more. This episode is brought to you in part by Osea. By now you probably know how much I'm obsessed with Osea's Undaria algae body oil, or as I like to call it, summer in a bottle. It's this refreshing blend of mango and mandarin, grapefruit, lime, and cypress, which is like really lovely and takes me back to a favorite beach feeling. And it's not just the scent I really like. This body oil is like a burst of hydration for your skin, giving it this deep moisturization and rejuvenation. I've been using the Undaria algae body oil and my skin, looks like it's been working out. Strong, silky. Yes, it glows. It's Osea's best-selling product for a reason. This oil is rich but never greasy. It firms, tones, and leaves my skin feeling unbelievably soft and glowing. Get healthy, glowing skin for summer with clean, vegan skin and body care from Osea. Get 10% off your first order site-wide with code EVERYTHINGHAPPENS at OseaMalibu.com. You'll get free samples with every order and free shipping on orders over $60. Head to Osea, O-S-E-A, Malibu.com and use code EVERYTHINGHAPPENS for 10% off.
There's another response to death and grief I want to ask you about, because I've seen it in all the Mennonites that I grew up with and are in my family, when they have some really lovely traditions around death where immediately women just start cooking and there's just nonstop fresh baked buns and every beautiful fried dough and huge marshmallowy bars of things. And then men will make things. And sometimes, like one of my cousins made his dad's coffin.
Yeah.
And with his brothers. And I thought that was such a
good work. Yeah.
Yeah. Why does that feel so good to be useful in those moments?
Because there's nothing you can do to fix it.
Yeah.
But you can do something to ameliorate the sense of helplessness.
Yeah.
In a way, it is like an act of faith. You know, you can't help, but there was a woman in our town. I've told this story too many times about a Mrs. Crawford who, as soon as she got word about someone in her circle dying, she would repair to the kitchen, and you would over time you would get to understand how close her connection to the dead was by what she made. And, she would make a tuna noodle casserole for your run-of-the-mill Methodist,
Yeah.
and she might make any number of a stew for someone on the block. But if she made strawberry rhubarb pie, Kate, you were like this with Evelyn.
You want to get into the strawberry rhubarb zone.
She would bear that into the funeral home like viaticum, and say, "Is there a place to leave this for the family?" I'd say, "Oh yeah, Evelyn, leave it right here on the desk. I'll watch it, because I know I'll sample it,
We both seem to have a real penchant for pastor friends. That is a good kind of friend to have, in my opinion. Useful in times of crisis, hilarious with the anecdotes. But when they get up, oh man, my friend Corey, she's like, Kate, anyone can marry people. Shaquille O'Neal can marry people. But who can have something true to say facing down a family? And I thought that was, you have maybe some strong feelings about what makes a good pastor or priest.
Well, showing up is because most of us run the opposite way,
Yeah.
I show up because they pay me, and my name's on the sign. I have to go in, But pastors, they have a few excuses, and but I find the ones that show up in times of trouble, armed with only their own faith, their faith. I think most pastors are more doubtful than the rest of us are, because they know more than we do about how man-made all this blathermentia is, but they show up and they do their part with only their own shaky faith to rely upon. I just think they're heroic, because I've seen guys say things that I thought they're risking getting pummeled because most people come to a death in the family with a fairly high level of spite and malice, and a good deal of anger, and which is fear, and which is lack of faith, which is what you get when shit happens. Where were you, God? Why wasn't God watching? Tom Waits asked. And so the priests and rabbis and imams and pastors and poobahs that show up, they're gutsy as far as I'm concerned, or they're just stupid. And I don't know too many that are stupid. They couldn't get through seminary. So they're smart and gutsy. I really admire them for that reason. For some time now, I've said I won't talk to just funeral directors because they're unteachable, and I know because I am one. But if they bring their clergy along, I'll talk to them as long as they want to chat. Because they actually read books and think, and they'll change. They're instructable.
Yeah. That is such a high compliment for anyone, isn't it? Just teachable.
I'd like to remain teachable. Yeah.
Thomas, this has been one of my very favorite conversations.
Kate, it's one of my favorites too.
Thank you so much for doing this with me.
And I think we should probably continue to stay in touch.
I agree.
I was visiting Washington, D.C. with my family, and I was walking around all those war memorials. I don't know if you've ever seen them, but they're so stunning. I just love looking at the care with which we articulate what feels like private grief publicly. And I'm standing right by the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, which has this really beautiful wall full of thousands of names of all the service members of the armed forces who served in the Vietnam War. And so, as there often is around those memorial experiences, you have, tourists and people just mulling about, taking in the experience. And then you see people that you know are not just people, but mourners. People standing next to a name on the wall that has special significance to them. And I was sort of taking in the gravity of the experience. And my friend who lives in DC and loves these things was explaining to me that what was so especially stunning about this memorial is that it's below eye level. So all of this grief is, in a way, hidden from public view. And I immediately thought of this poem, written by our new favorite person, Thomas Lynch. And so I pulled it up and I started to read it. And as I did, I didn't notice how some of those mourners and people who were just milling about started to gather around and listen as I read. And we all had a really good cry. And you'll see why. Here's his poem. It's called Local Heroes by Thomas Lynch. Some days the worst that can happen happens. The sky falls, or evil overwhelms, or the world as we've come to know it turns toward the eventual apocalypse, long predicted in all the holy books, the end times of old grudge and grievances that bring each to our oblivions. Still, maybe this is not the end at all, nor even the beginning of the end, rather one more in a long list of sorrows to be added to the ones thus far endured, through what we have come to call our history, another in that bitter litany that we will, if we survive it, have survived. God help us who must live through this, alive to the terror and open wounds, the heart torn, shaken faith, the violent and vengeful soul, the nerve exposed, the broken body so mingled with its breaking that it's lost forever. Lord, send us, in our peril, local heroes, someone to listen, someone to watch, someone to search and wait and keep the careful count of the dead and missing, the dead and gone, but not forgotten. Some days, all that can be done is to salvage one sadness from the mass of sadnesses, to bear one body home, to lay the dead out among their people, organize the flowers and casseroles, write the obits, meet the mourners at the door, drive the dark procession down through town, toll the bell, dig the hole, tend the pyre. It's what we do. The day-long news is dire, full of true believers and politicos, bold talk of holy war and photo ops. But here, brave men and women pick the pieces up. They serve the living, caring for the dead. Here, the distant battle is waged in homes. Like politics, all funerals are local. Bless you, my dears, all you heroes who walked the edge with the people we love, who make the strawberry rhubarb pie, or build the coffin, or sit with families holding on to only shaky faith, who show up no matter the hour of the day. This is our undertaking.
Hi, Kate. My name is Catherine Kramer. I live in St. Louis, Missouri. My youngest brother drowned in a swimming accident when he was 24, and my siblings and I, with the help of our mom, wrote his obituary, and all of it is so true and still resonates, but I would say the truest thing is we said his gentle spirit, selflessness, stories, and laughter will be greatly missed by the many who loved him. And I would say 7 years later, his laughter is the thing that I miss the most. It feels like a missing piece from so many joyful events that we've had since we lost him. Thank you for asking. I really appreciate it. Bye.
Oh, hi, Kate. It's Kathy Francis calling from Delta, BC. I'm calling to answer your question about have you ever written an obituary and what is the truest thing you wrote. My eldest daughter, died when she was 19. She had leukemia. She was brilliant. She was beautiful. And we miss her every day. At the last line of her obituary, we wrote, "Her living and dying were graced by dignity and courage." Thanks. Bye.
Hi, Kate. My name's Catherine. I'm from Pennsylvania. 3 years ago, I wrote the obituary for my dad. And while I did fact-checking for the resume type information, the truest things that I shared in his obituary did not require any research. First, that he had intensely grieved the loss of his oldest daughter who preceded him in death. Second, that more than anything, he loved God and his family and found joy and pride in all of us. And third, and perhaps what he was best known for, was that he was zealous about supporting others in their journeys, that he always had time for people who were hurting and in need of help, and that he was a cheerleader for hope and self-improvement. That helped me heal, writing that and remembering my dad that way as he was. Thanks.
A really special thank you to our generous partners who make this work possible. Lilly Endowment, the Duke Endowment, Duke Divinity School, and Leadership Education. And to my wonderful team, Jessica Ritchie, Harriet Putman, Gwen Higginbotham, Brenda Thompson, Keith Weston, Jeb, and Sammy. Thank you. And I would love to hear what you thought about this episode. Would you do me a favor and leave a review on Apple Podcasts? It really, really means a lot to us when we get to hear what we do well and also might even do better. You can also leave us a voicemail, and who knows, we might even be able to use your voice on the air. Call us at 919-322-8731. All right, lovelies, I'll talk to you next week. But in the meantime, come find me online at Kate C. Bowler. This is Everything Happens with me, Kate Bowler.
Mayo is a comedian, writer, producer, and when it comes to confidently managing her finances, she's a beginner. Join her on The Dough, Lemonada Media's new 10-episode podcast series, as she dives into better understanding the financial trapdoors that any of us could fall into. If you've ever stayed in a bad relationship to avoid moving out costs or found yourself swimming in debt, you're not alone. Each week, she'll be exploring all types of financial flops and money myths that stand in the way of our financial freedom. On this show, Cash is queen. We hardly know her, but we're determined to be her friend. You can listen to The Dough on Amazon Music or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey everyone, it's David Duchovny. Do you ever feel like a failure? Trust me, I get it. Hell, I've spent my whole life almost feeling like a failure. It's appropriate though, because on Fail Better, my new podcast with Lemonada Media, exploring the world of failure, how it holds us back, propels us forward, and ultimately shapes our lives is the whole point. Each week, I'll chat with artists, athletes, actors, and experts about how our perceived failures have actually been our biggest catalysts for growth, revelation, and even healing. Through these conversations, I hope we can learn how to embrace the opportunity of failure and fail better together. Fail Better is out now. You can listen ad-free on Amazon Music or wherever you get your podcasts.